Good morning, everybody. Got your coffee? I got mine. So listen, before I get started, there are people to thank. I want to say thank you so much to Vincent. Vincent, thank you so much. And I want to say thank you to Karen. Karen, thank you so much. Vincent, you said put it wherever I need to put it, baby, and I shall do that. Paris, you said divided up between the kids and the Great Escape. And then T. Taylor, thank you so much. I'm a little confused about what you intended for that donation to be, but I did leave you a direct message via the room. So if you could just check that and get back to me. Thank you so much, babes. Anyway, listen. Karen, the chess set that you sponsored came. It's our first one. They've started coming in. We want to put some of these chess sets in there for the kids, so it keeps them occupied. I wanted to do it for the I also did this with the high schoolers and middle schoolers in mind. We did have a graduating senior at the library pantry. We have one, and you know what, they're right across the street. They live like right across the way from me, across the street. And the only way that I knew is because they have one of those graduate 2025 signs in the on their lawn, and I didn't see any activity, any graduation activity. Graduation was like a really big thing in my day. It's a big thing nowadays. I see the graduation videos and the prom videos. I didn't see any of that type activity over there. But then again, I do tend to be in the back of the house in my garden a lot. My garden is gardening, y'all. Anyway, so I didn't see any activities or anything like that. But I'm very proud of the senior. I really am. And I want to, do something nice for them. I want to get them a little something on the low, because graduation is a big thing, especially in the Black community when we talk about the school to prison pipeline, because we know that we are the only community that has that working against us. Now with the closing of Job Corps, but anyway, Karen, thank you so much. Look at this. I got this. This thing was $10, y'all. I got scammed. When you try to divest, you got to be real careful of who you support, because this was supposed to be a makeup mirror. Y'all, let's open it up and look at this bullshit. Look at this. It was supposed to be more like, did I already put it in the pantry? Remember that other mirror I showed you guys? That's a makeup mirror. It's got a tray and everything and a mirror to it that lights up. Never again. The review on this is going to be scathing. Because, honey, I believe in writing a review and warning people so that other people don't make the same mistake that I made. Then we got some of these watercoloring books here. Y'all remember these? Y'all remember these from when we were kids? I already have some in the pantry. So I'm just kind of collecting them right now. And you would get the little, you have the paintbrush. See the paintbrush up here? And then you get a little cup of water. And then it would already be like the pictures would be colored. You would have like the little paint things on the side of the picture, and you would just dip it in the water and color it. Y'all remember these? A bit of nostalgia, I'm going to give these kids. And, we were able to get a few of these thanks to donations. The wire headphones. These are different than the ones we put in there previously. And they weren't too bad. They were at like 15 bucks each. So we got some nice things coming in for the kids. We've got some more chess sets coming in. We got some checker sets coming in. Thank you. You guys have been wonderful. I just mentioned that at the end of the month, things do get, a little skimpy in the library pantry, and y'all just came on through, and I appreciate that. I do, because they're just babies, but they do complain. But they're just babies. These are not, emotionally intelligent beings. We have to teach them that. And through the camera, I do try to give them those lessons gently. I do this gentle parenting thing because they're not my kids. These are not my kids. So you can't, so I never yell at them. I'm never harsh with them. I never criticize them. I speak to them the way I would want someone to speak to my children. But you have to remind them not to fight. I told you we had that little fight the other day. You have to remind them that's the first time that's ever happened. And then sometimes they can be a little ungrateful, but again, they're babies. So you just have to gently remind them that, you don't have to come here, and then they're like, that's the point, and I don't want to be, I don't want to be someone that she says I can't come back, because there are times when there are really good things inside this library pantry. But we want to keep their minds occupied over the summer. So I want to put in more educational games. And like I said, they may not, I'll put in a few fun things here and there. I will. But I want to put in things that make them think, because our kids, they really do need that. And I know I say that a lot, but it's really important. It's important, y'all. Because our kids are set up to fail. Black kids, they are set up to fail 100%. Anyway, enough of that. Today is June the 2nd. And remember when I told y'all, I think it was last month, I told y'all, the first of every month when I get ready to pay my mortgage, I do say this little prayer about everybody who's struggling with rent and their mortgage right now, because this is a really expensive country to live in. And a lot of us that are making it, well, I don't want to say us because, I'm barely making it. So a lot of y'all that's making it, I think sometimes we forget about community, and part of being in community is that we have to think outside of ourselves and we have to think about the needs of the entire community. And Black people do have fewer resources than anyone. So when things get as expensive as they are, Black people are going to struggle, putting gas in the car. They're going to struggle maintaining that car. They're going to struggle buying food. They're going to struggle, if they're not living in communities with food deserts, full-on food deserts, pharmacy deserts. That's a whole nother thing. They're going to struggle paying utilities. They're going to struggle being able to provide the little extras for their kids in the summer, activities and games. And again, that pantry teaches me so much because these kids show up every single day to that pantry looking for something to do. And they don't have a lot. They just have their little bikes and they just have their little clothes, and they don't have a lot because their parents don't have a lot to give to them. And so thank you again from the bottom of my heart for the way you all have been serving this community and little Black kids. But their parents do have very big worries, like rent. And speaking of which, I was taking my husband to work this morning, and we saw where someone had got sat out. That's what we call it in the Black community. When someone gets evicted, they got sat out. We've been saying that for as long as I can remember. And he said, look, and I'm worried about the vulture in the middle of the road eating this dead squirrel and how I'm going to get around him. So I didn't really see it. But on my way back home, I did. And it's just a mess. But I noticed it several houses in my community over this past week where people have been set out. And you can tell the difference between when people have decided to move and they just put the things out on that they don't want anymore versus when somebody then got sat out, because everything is out there, and it's always sad to see. I remember one time when I was living in Detroit. Have y'all ever seen the process of someone getting sat out? I've seen it twice. I've seen it once here in Columbia, and I've seen it in Detroit. And in Detroit, I lived next door to this girl, and she was a single mom, and she had something like 5 little kids or something like that. And, and we didn't really talk or anything like that. I worked a lot in those days. I did. And, my relatives were like my kids' babysitters. So they were always, their friends were their cousins. They were always with their cousins. So during this time, they weren't really, they really didn't know a lot of kids in our neighborhood. You know, and that's on me. That's on me. But I worked a lot. I had to take care of my kids, and I had to do what I had to do, you know, the same way she had to do what she had to do. But anyway, didn't really say a lot to her. She kept to herself. And I remember I don't know what was going on. If it was, I remember for some reason the kids were home. So it could have been a weekend. It could have been, I know it wasn't plant shut down because that usually happens during school summer vacation. They tend to do it that way during the plant. They try to. I don't know why we were down. I don't know if it was winter break or I don't know what it was. But I remember it was winter because it was snowing. It was one of those really snowy days in Michigan. Really extremely cold day. I remember that. And I remember I just heard somebody screaming and crying and yelling. And so, and I tell you, I am a very mind my own business kind of person. I'm the type of person, you can be outside screaming and yelling and hollering and, you know, it's not unusual for me to just stay in place and, you know, turn the TV up. That's not, I'm not even going to lie about that. But anyway, I didn't. I looked out the window to see what was going on. And I'd never seen anyone be in the process of being put outside. And there were two men and they were wearing badges. And I remember her landlord, because his name was Jimmy Mack. Because everybody that lived in that house had a problem with Jimmy Mack. Everybody. And so I'll never forget his name. And plus, I sued him one time. I sued him one time for some damage done to the back of the fence of my house. And made him fix my fence because some kids that they rented the house to, they were swinging on the fence and they broke the fence. And I asked him several times to fix it and he wouldn't do it. So I looked up, I went that far. I went to the city records, city county records and found out who owned the property. And first I gave him a certified letter. That didn't work. Then I gave him another certified letter on legal letterhead. That didn't work. And then I took him to 36th District Court and I sued him. I sure did. Because I'm bad like that. Anyway, but all he had to do really was just fix the fence. But anyway, that's how I know what his name was. His name was James something McBride or something like that. And people called him Jimmy Mack. And he was sitting in his Cadillac with the window cracked, watching the whole thing go down. And I mean, just imagine being just sitting in your house right now. Just sit in your house right now and somebody just come put it out. And I know what some of you all are thinking because you cold-blooded and cold-hearted. You're thinking, well, she should have paid her rent. Things happen. People lose jobs. People lose their source of income. People die. People fall on hard times. People have life emergencies. Shit happens. And I remember her kids was just outside. And I remember when they put the stove out and like her appliances and everything was just on this, it was just snowing and they were just out on the lawn. And I had never seen anything like that in my life. And it was, and I really, even though the girl, she, I ain't gonna lie, she was kind of a bitch a little bit, but I'll never fucking forget that. And it was hours, y'all. It didn't take them hours to get her out there. But I remember her and her kids sat out there for hours, like hours. And finally, I was like, hey, do you have someplace to go? And she was like, I'm waiting on a truck right now. And I said, do you want to come in and wait? And I ain't gonna lie, I really didn't want all them in my house, but it was so cold, y'all. And she said, no, but if my kids can come in, she said, if my kids can come inside and warm up, I will really appreciate that. And so I let her kids come in and they sat down and I put in a VHS. And I remember I called my mother because her kids said they were hungry. And right on the corner of 7 Mile and DeQuinder, it's probably still there. It was a Church's Chicken. And I just had her go get a big family meal. Church's Chicken, and you know, and I just kind of fed the kids. And my mother was good for stuff like that. And it was horrible. I never seen anybody get sat out before. And then in Columbia, I saw it happen to my next door neighbors on the other side, it happened to them. And, you know, now we're back in these days where we're seeing people just get set out because rent is so unaffordable. And, you know, in this nation, we're making it so, we're normalizing tiny homes. And you've got so many young people. I saw a sister do a video not too long ago, and she said, do you realize, are y'all seeing all these young people who live in their cars? And I said, sis, it ain't just the young people, it's the old people too. It's the old people too. Count yourself blessed. I'm trying to tell y'all. Be thankful. Thank the ancestors for the roof that's over your head. Don't take for granted that about you being able to pay your bills and meet all your responsibilities. You know, black people, the one thing about us is that we got so much pride. We do. Black people, we actually got too much pride. I mean, we'll get the help, but we don't want to see anybody. We don't want anybody seeing us get the help. We don't. And I have a lot of parents, like with the library pantry, they have their kids come down and get the food. They won't come get the food. And kids be getting full whole. They come with backpacks and they be getting whole meals. It be the kids. Some disgusting person told me one time when I was talking about that in another video, they said, you need to call CPS. Why ever would I call CPS? CPS, the agency that steals black children, monetize, taking them away from black parents. Why ever would I be doing that? Especially when it's a food source right there. And that's what the fuck the food source is for. It's for them to take when they need it. But the parents will come, don't get me wrong. But a lot of them will send the kids. You know, I think a lot of them suspect that I'm fond of kids. And actually, I really ain't that fond of kids. To be honest with you, I'm not. But, you know, they're little people. And I believe that they deserve to be nurtured, too. And I wish I had done a better job of nurturing my own when they were that age. But kids know when they're hungry, you know. And if it's there, why can't they take it? Even if it's just a can of fruit cocktail. Or some instant macaroni and cheese. It's there for them. It's there for the community, to serve the community. Why would I call CPS for that reason? Nothing detrimental is happening to those kids. They're being fed. People, the community is making sure that they're being fed. But black people have a lot of pride. We do. And I saw a TikTok where another one of my sisters, the Carolina Diamond, I don't know if y'all follow her. She was saying that normalize saying you broke. I know that's right. Because if you don't have money for brunch, and if you don't have money for this, and you don't have money for that, people out here working 2 or 3 jobs so that they can look a certain way, so that they can not look broke, so that they can hide the lashes, so that they can hide the braids, so they can hide the latest gear, so that they can hide the name brands. And hey, if you're willing to do that so that you can look that way, I mean, more power to you. But yeah, we need to normalize saying that we are broke, that we don't have it. I know when I tell people that I am a poor person, I remember the first time that I told my husband that we were poor. He was so uncomfortable, and he even got like visibly upset by that. Sir, this is America, where they do not pay people a livable wage, and all the social safety nets are disappearing. Rent is $2,000 a month. And what are we doing as a black community? Instead of keeping that money inward, we giving people like Target 12 million of our dollars per day. Did y'all read that article? Black people were giving Target $12 million per day before this boycott. Ain't nowhere in the world we got no business doing no shit like that. Just imagine if all black people stopped shopping at Target. And we took those $12 million that we spend a day giving to white people, and we instead gave it to black people. Think about how much further we could be. that's another conversation, and I know I pivoted there, but think about that. Sit with that for a bit. We normalizing van life. We normalizing tiny homes. We normalizing living in multi-general households with all this toxicity. Hell, if all these generations got to live together, you might as well work your shit out. Go to therapy so that we don't fuck up the next generation. If we all forced to live together anyway. And now you got these corporations buying up these houses and renting them out per room. That ain't no way to live. Living amongst people that you don't know if they are properly vetted, and you don't know if you can trust, and you got to possibly sleep with one eye open. This America is bullshit. It is. So if you got a roof over your head right now, you can afford that roof over your head, and you are comfortable right now, say a amen. Thank your ancestors. Be thankful. Be humble. Because you got it really good right now. I know this went long. I'm sorry, but I always worry for our people this time of month. Sometimes I wish I could turn that switch off, because I think I would have less problems if I didn't worry about black people as much as I did. But just like some black people don't have the capacity to care about anybody except for themselves, I clearly don't have the capacity to care about only myself. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Some days it is, some days it ain't. Just depends on the day. Anyway, if you would like to support the platform, I will leave my Cash App and my Venmo down in the comments. If you would like to support The Great Escape, that endeavor is struggling just a little bit, I would appreciate it. I'll leave that information down in the comments too. Y'all have a wonderful day, and check in on your people today. Do something nice for someone. It's spiritual. Talk to you tomorrow.